My wife asked me to choose between my mom and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. A little background: my mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born. My mom didn't really have a support system, so we were just the two of us. I never lacked anything because my mother worked all her life to give me the life I have today and didn't even have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I had very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16, when I saw her getting sick and working at the same time. I wanted to help her by finding a job, but she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her and it was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades to get into the best universities. It's the only way I can protect myself when she can't anymore. Even at university she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies, but she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. I met my wife there while both of us were volunteering. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought she loved my mother more than she loved me and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for the bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies, I found a job, we moved in together, but she wasn't comfortable that I call my mom every day. Remind you, those were 10 to 15 minutes calls, but eventually she stopped. Bring it on. 2 years later I bought a house for my mother, because we never had a house in our name. We lived from apartment to apartment, so for all the sacrifices she made, it was for me the least of it, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problem started with my wife, then GF. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know I bought a house for her, as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She was uncomfortable receiving the house because of my wife and told me that it wasn't necessary, that we could use it for us when we get married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her, that she could do whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our couple survived that. We got married and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be close to her and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. Me and my wife don't have children yet. We both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m., but since my mother is sick, I go to see her and come home at 8 p.m. On weekends I see her for 1 or 2 hours, and the rest of the time I spend it with my wife. We go on date. I always accompany her in her hobbies, even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago she told me that she thought about it and she thinks I prioritize my mother too much. She told me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I want to build with her. The truth is that I never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks, and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I do the dishes she likes. She didn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, flowers. I write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find out. We go on a trip 1 weekend a month. I earn much more money than her. I told her to keep her money for herself, and I take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion. And I think I am easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers. But I realize that she tries to completely dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So there, I'm going to have a talk with her and set some very clear boundaries. If she doesn't want to, well, we're going to divorce. Just want it out of my chest.
Here's another story of a man not in his masculinity, where he's not setting boundaries, he's not setting standards, right? He's not holding his ground, not really. And he is pedalizing his wife. And he's, again, not holding her accountable for her actions, nor, being more strict. He's very, and most men are like this, right? He's just very nonchalant, just go with the flow. It's like he lives the notion happy wife, happy life kind of thing, just whatever. If you're happy, fine. Or I don't need to make trouble, which, yeah, most men do that. But I've seen it more and more that it becomes a detriment to men, because at the end of the day, women just don't see that you're just being a good man. They see you as being a doormat. And this is the thing, I've done already a few stories, which I'll continue to do more, because I like to show other men these stories. But it shows that when you're not holding your ground, when you're not being the man, when you're not showing yourself the leader, the head of your own household, well, women will naturally kind of one-up you or take control of you or treat you like a doormat. And this is what he's experiencing now, where his mom has been amazing to him. So she for her to be feeling any type of way is ridiculous. For her to ruin his surprise for his mom is uncalled for, and that's crossed the line already. But for her to say anything because she knew that he cared for his mom deeply before the marriage, and then it just, for her now, she complains about it before the marriage, marries him and still complains about it, and gets worse. And he saw it, and he was fine with it. But it's only become a detriment to men, because at the end of the day, the divorce will always, or more than likely, hurt the men in the end. And he's just deluding himself in it, where he's letting things slide. He's pretty much dictating how she should treat him, because how he lets things slide or don't really make things more of an issue, well, now this is how she treats him. And it's just a sad representation of men doing it to themselves, really.
Update: my wife asked me to choose between my mom and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. Before confronting my wife, I had time to reflect, and I came to the conclusion that I will never again let anyone in my life dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the time I should dedicate to her. So I decided to answer the ultimatum, but first I wanted to know if there was another reason why she gave me this ultimatum. She replied that nope. I asked her, apart from what she blamed me for, was there something she wanted to tell me but couldn't tell me? She said there was nothing and asked me to come to the point, so I told her I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I think she was shocked because she wasn't talking. She was just staring at me. I tell her everything that was on my mind, that our values are too different. I was going through the worst moment of my life. My mother was sick. We did several tests with her. We still don't know what she's suffering from. We don't know her family medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me anxious to know that overnight I could find myself alone in the world. Yes, alone in the world, because in these difficult times, all I needed was her support. But if my own wife thinks that I should give less attention to my mother, who is sick and who needs me more than ever, it's time to go to our separate way. She still didn't say anything, so I told her I'm going to a hotel for now and we'll discuss later how we're going to separate. I took some of my things and left. The next day when I went to see my mother, she figured out something wasn't right, but I was not going to tell her I was separating from my wife because she could not bear our relationship, especially since she was sick like that. I didn't want to add more torment to her. I never discuss my marriage issue with my mother anyway, so she does not know our problems, and honestly, she adores my wife too much, and my wife behaves as if she was her own mother, so I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mom ends up telling me that my wife didn't come by that day. Yes, my wife, who asked me to reduce my contact with my mother, was seeing her every day, and I never asked her to do anything for my mother. She calls my mother Mom. When she gets sick, she used to go to my mother so she would take care of her. It used to hurt me because it's as if I couldn't take care of her, but she said that this was not the same. The attentions of a mother are different. I told myself that it was her way of creating a mother-daughter bond that she never had, and I understood her. She ever said her mother used to tell her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, that she almost aborted her and regrets not doing it. Only a monster could say that to her child. So I never said anything whenever she wanted my mother's attention. Besides, I received enough love to share with whoever wanted. My mother, after I left home to study, became a foster mom for children. She always did until 2 years ago. I have always loved each of the children with whom I still keep in touch and whom I consider to be my siblings. Once a year, we all went on vacation together for a week. The children, my mother and my wife. I generally take 2 months of vacation, of which of the 6 weeks I devoted it to my wife, but the 2 weeks that I devoted to my mother and the children, it was too much for my wife. Anyway, I'm rambling. So when my mom told me she didn't come to see her that day, I went back home because I was worried. I found her in the bathroom with her clothes and red eyes, like she was crying all along. Seeing her like that was unbearable. I helped her out, but this woman, who had so much pride, collapsed in front of me crying a lot. I don't know if it was an hour or 2, but she kept crying, calmed down, crying again. I just stayed silent. She ended up telling me that deep down she never wanted me to involve any less in my mother life. She was always jealous of our relationship. She was always jealous of the attention my mother gave to the other children. She knows that it wasn't rational, but she couldn't help constantly striving to be number one in my mother's heart. It was kind of a competition for her, so when I wanted to take care of my mom, she didn't want me to be the one taking care of her. I was honestly furious without saying anything, of course, but I wondered if she was a psychopath or something. We are talking about a person who is seriously ill, and she is thinking about her damn competition, even if it means sabotaging the relationship I have with my mother and putting us in a situation where I wanted to divorce her. She told me that she was very jealous of me and that she would have liked to be in my place. If she had to choose, she would have even chosen to be my mother's child rather than my wife, even if I was the love of her life and the only man she ever knew. She also told me that even if the world falls apart around me, I will remain stoic, that I live as if I don't need anyone, and that I give everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me, and she never managed to get there. Only my mother could get there. At that moment, I did not know what else to say. I was hooked on this idea of competition so that I did not immediately grasp the scope of these words. But I still listened to her to the end. I put her to bed until she fell asleep. Then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning she was acting like anything happened. She was being herself. She said I don't have to pity. I told her it was out of love that she was still my wife. She left to work and I did the same but decided to stay at the hotel from the time being. During that time, I wondered what I could have said so that she could think about that. Deep down I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place longer to make friends. It was heartbreaking to every time we have to move. Between my 5 and my 15 years I have moved more than 50 times, from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room, and since then I think I have always lived my relationships like a squat. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be fired. But I thought that with my wife I acted differently, but you have to believe not. During that time, I wondered what I could have done, acted or said to make her feel like that. Deep down I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place longer to make friends. It was heartbreaking to every time we have to move. Between my 5 to my 15 I have moved more than 50 times, from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room, and since then I think I have always lived my relationships like a squat. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be kicked out. But I thought with my wife I acted differently, but I guess not. So I thought maybe we didn't need to go that far. What we needed wasn't divorce but therapy. Then this happened. A little over a week after our discussion, I was called from the hospital. My wife had been hospitalized. She apparently did not feel well. I went to visit her, but she didn't want to see me. If you see the eyes I saw, I've never seen so much hate in just 2 eyes. I told her besties so she can have her system support because she didn't want me there. I told my mom. She asked me what I had done to my wife so that she ended up in the hospital, and that I should not stress a woman who was pregnant. I said what? She told me my wife told her and asked her to keep it a secret because she wanted to tell me herself when she was ready. I don't know what was going through my head, between anger that it was my mother who told me or happiness at having to be a dad for the first time and total confusion at the surreal situation. I went to my wife and told her I knew, but she looked at me again angrily and told me she had lost the baby and it was my fault. In an instant, I just got the news that my wife was pregnant but kept it from me, that I was going to be a dad and that we lost the baby and that she was accusing me of having caused something that I didn't even know. She asked me to leave and I left. I always wanted children, very early on. My wife wanted to put her career first. I understood and accepted. I've been trying to convince her for years but without success. Now she gets pregnant. She doesn't tell me anything. She talks to my mother about it, and she says I caused her miscarriage. Since then, she says she didn't tell me anything because she wanted to first confirm if I could deal with all the responsibilities I give myself and raise a child at the same time. I don't understand her, and I admit since then I have a fierce hatred against her. I don't know how to look at her without having anger on me and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home but we don't talk to each other. I'm not going to stay with her. It's not possible. I started a session with a psychologist. He told me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't make a permanent decision on emotions that could be temporary and that I should take time to see if there were things to salvage. Here is where I am. I don't know if I'll do another update. I took days off to be there for my wife and for my mother but I'm feeling pretty depressed and I just want to get away from all this BS right now.
I think it's great that he holds his ground, at least with his relationship with his mother, where, like he said, he's not letting any woman dictate his relationship with his mom, which is good. He's hold that boundary, but you have to think that how you set everything else in your life, like he said, he take care of her. He pretty much let her have her way, where she doesn't have to spend no money. It's all her money. She doesn't have to contribute to the household. He treats her amazingly, right? He's pretty much the wife and the husband of the relationship. And she sees that as he's a doormat, right? Although, yeah, because she's seen the only thing that he has an issue with is you can't cross the line with him, with his relationship with him and his mom. But it will, because you are relaxed on everything else in your life. Well, now a woman will push it, and even in that part where she feels like, oh, I have him, I control him in every aspect of life. Well, now I'm going to dominate him in this one. This one boundary he has, well, he has no boundaries for nothing, so I don't care. He shouldn't have this boundary too. Sometimes we don't understand how we pretty much live our lives, or I don't know, dictate our other boundaries, or not having any, will show other people will give people a chance to just disrespect us completely. And this is the thing where he's not, again, he's being a doormat. He's not being strong on anything else. And I get it. I guess that's his personality. But you have to show a consistency in life. For if you have a marriage, you have to show that consistency in life, to show that you have boundaries, that a woman should not cross you, and that she should respect you completely. But a lot of things he's done is just, he let her turn into the what? It's like he pretty much turned her into the monster she is, right? Although she was a monster, but his actions have now just created an unstoppable monster in a way. And even though she got an excuse that, you know, because of her childhood, she loves his mom, and it's just no. It's just you're playing into her delusions. You know, you're playing into her, you know, way of thinking. And I'll say no, that's not. Don't. It's because it's indicative of how he treats his relationship. So now she's just playing him some more. So I don't know. I just think that men should reevaluate how they live life. That's it, and stick with their boundaries and make it clear.